Hello there, YouTubers. On this review, we're going to review Steve Dela's Will to Read. Roll the trailers.
Right, well, first things first, I have here a page from a book, okay? It's from a book that I've read, it's been torn out, and on here, in the words, is a prediction of some of the actions that I think we're going to do with you. I think the actions you're about to take, okay? Now, you'll also have noticed I've brought out with me a card, a pen, and a coin.
So there you go. Will to Read by Steve Dela. It's $27.99, I believe, in Alakazam at the moment. Bare bones of the routine, it's very simple. You take out a piece of paper from your wallet, you place it on the table, you can borrow a pen, a card and a coin. They can be totally examinable and borrowed items, and you predict the outcome of the free choice that the spectator's going to make. You know, 3 objects, 3 locations, 9 possible outcomes, and you nail it exact. This is not one of them routines where one of the outcomes is slightly stronger than the other 8 or anything like that. You nail it, and the outcome is very strong. Great routine. Getting some great reactions as I'm performing it. It's simple to use. Very little memory work, if any, really. Steve Dela's built into the piece of paper some really useful memory jogs, and there's only really 3 things really you need to remember, if that. And they're not really complicated. Unlike this is based on the free will principle. If anyone's ever played around with that, they kind of know the main concept of how the prediction is handled depends on the outcome. And if you've got free will, you kind of know what I'm talking about. I don't want to give too much away. And also based on that key ring, I'm sure we all went and bought, where you had to remember which way to take the key ring out, etc. No moving parts, it's just a piece of paper, really. What you get is over an hour, I think, with only a handful of live performances. The one of Steve Dela doing it in a pub, and then obviously with Peter Nadia's performance as well. Have to say, I prefer Peter's handling, but then again, that's what you get from Alakazam. You get the great thinking of Peter Nadia with the prop and all his different ideas of presentation, and obviously Steve's thinking behind it and the creation of it. It's well worth it. My only negativity is I would have liked more spares of the piece of paper. You only really get 1 spare, and that's kind of tells me that all the other reviewers that have talked about this haven't really even looked at the product. Yes, you get lots of piece of paper in the product, but depending on how you want to perform it, and there's 2 different ways of doing it, you only really get 1 spare. And because it's a piece of paper, it's going to get groggy, it's going to get dirty. I noticed on some research that when this was first released back in 2015 or 16, I think it was, that the refills were not made available even back then. So I doubt they're going to be made available now. So if it does get groggy, am I going to pay another $27.99 for a piece of paper? Probably not. Could I go to my local printers and get one printed up? Then possibly, but that's a lot of hassle. So I would have just expected maybe 3 or 4. The cost of printing, once you've started rolling a few out, isn't a huge amount. So I would have liked a few spares included. I mean, having a prediction or an idea on a piece of paper that you've ripped out of a book is not new. It's not. I don't think that's. I've seen it done a few times. Certainly recently with Michael Murray's Between the Lines, which is another great. If you like this effect, I'm not sure if Michael's still selling it, but check out Between the Lines by Michael Murray. It's a great, again, just a piece of paper torn out of a book. Slip it in your wallet, and you get to perform. It's a nice routine. You get some added additional extras or 2 other routines for your money. You get the book test. Steve Dela's All About Eve. If I'm totally honest, I don't think it's as strong on a piece of paper than it is in a book. You're not doing a book test as such. What you're doing is a piece of paper test. I don't think it's worth it. It's a useful little thing, and I've did it when you've performed for someone and they've really enjoyed it. They call their friend over and say, "Oh, do that again." Well, you can't really repeat it again. But what you can do with the same piece of paper is another effect. So that kind of gets over that problem of do it again. So I quite like that, though, the fact it's included, so don't necessarily throw it away. There's a bit of memory work. If I was Steve, I wouldn't have included all 19 force words on the piece of paper. I would have just narrowed it down. I think it kind of I think escalates or explains the method. And also you get the bit book reveal, which I think is completely pointless. If you're going to get the bit book, why not just use the reveal from the front cover? Why then get a piece of paper? I think that's more of a majority of Magic purchasers nowadays want 16 tricks for their money. I think £27.99 for something that you're likely to use. A little bit steep for what the actual production or the prop. It's a piece of paper at the end of the day. However, for the routine and the thinking behind it, and it's very clever, I think it's worth it. So I certainly recommend it. Like I say, I went out and bought it with my own money, and I'm using it. Would I buy it again if the piece of paper I got started getting a bit scruffy and dirty? I think that's the question. But certainly, it's a strong routine. It's a very, very clever prediction. I wouldn't perform it as a prediction effect. I would, and this is where I think the value of watching the whole video. Peter Nadia's handling and presentation, I think, is brilliant. I've taken some ideas, but again, if you've been performing for any period of time, you can see this prop. You can present it in a multitude of different ways. It's either a prediction, it's a mind reading, it's I've somehow managed to force you to pick them items because I knew I'm going to make you pick them items, or I knew you were going to pick them items in advance. All these different effects. It's all kind of in on a piece of paper at the end of the day. Slightly pricey, I think, maybe. Certainly for like the amateur magician and who just wants to perform it. But, the fact that you can just fill this piece of paper up, put it in your wallet, anybody asks you to perform something, you're ready to do something. And yeah, it's quite a strong effect. Like I said, I've performed it a few times, getting some really good reactions. Is it examinable? There's not really a huge amount to see. It's a piece of paper at the end of the day. I wouldn't necessarily leave them with the piece of paper for a long period of time. If they read every single line, every single word, all the way through both sides, then I think they'll probably work out the method. But to be honest, no one's really going to do that. I think they would if you did the book test, because then you're putting a lot of kind of focus on all the words, and that's why I would only ever use the book test if somebody said, can you show them that, and then it's a get out. I wouldn't do a whole performance around the book test on this piece of paper, but that's just my humble opinion, and it's an honest opinion, and that's what you come here for. But saying all that, I do recommend it. I do think it's a good little effect. I really like Steve's thinking. He's really thought deeply about this. There's a lot of detail in the video, even though it's just Steve and Peter sat down talking with a couple of performances. I still think it's well worth it. It's well worth a watch. Just listening to Pete Nadia talk about his ideas and thoughts is really worth it. But you think, Pete, you'd throw in a couple of more for, spare pieces of paper. But other than that, highly recommended. And if you like what I'm saying, if you like my reviews, then please subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell all your other magician friends. I'm not linked to any dealer. No one sends me anything to review. I buy it off my own back, so therefore I can be honest about it. So till the next time, subscribe, keep in touch.